What's up, y'all? And welcome back to another great episode of your favorite podcast, Eat, Cry, Yap. I'm your host, Kanalee, and I'm so privileged to be back here on another week with new shit to talk about. Okay, because 2025 has been freaking wild. Okay. We are not even, what are we? About 4 weeks. No, three and a half. Ooh, my timing is off. Something like that. We're not even at the end of the month yet. And so much has been going on. And so we're going to talk about some of the juiciest things that have been going on in the media today. But first I got to give y'all just a little life date to catch y'all up, because if you remember, in my first episode, sorry, I gotta laugh to myself because of this update I have to share. In my first update, I was sitting here all googly eyed and just so excited to talk about this little dude who I was seeing at the time. And my update for y'all this week is that he is dead to me. Okay. He's not dead to me. We're just done. We're just not seeing each other anymore. And I just think it's so funny because that is literally the state of dating in 2025, 2024, 2023. Like, as quickly as they can come, as quickly they can go. And I just feel like it's just so like on point and so just on par with meeting new people and, getting to know them and seeing like what you like and what you don't like. And oftentimes we find, us women find, when it comes to men who play games, that, well, even in general, like you in the beginning, you are seeing people on their best behavior, right? Like people really trying to win you over and trying to make sure that they are showing you that, they're worth your time. But, the thing about men who lie, it will come back to you. And I just feel that honesty is always the best policy. What is the purpose of being dishonest about, I don't know, your intentions? Being dishonest about, I don't know, if you've healed. Because once you start lying, you have to keep building on that lie, or else you're going to get caught up. And maybe because it's still raw, I have some anger, but also I just feel like when you are fully honest about your intention and you keep that same energy, it's hard to not expect the same, from people who you are getting to know. And so I am just honestly still processing, what happened, because literally, y'all, this just happened like almost 2 weeks ago now. Like this will be the second week. Um, and so it is still very raw and real, but what I will say is that I don't have any regrets about how I conducted myself, because I am very impaired. I am very intentional at this point in my dating experience about being open and honest about what I'm looking for, being open and honest about what I'm not looking for, and ensuring that the person that I'm getting to know, the person that I'm spending time with, is on that exact same wavelength. And I just do not appreciate it when I set that standard and I keep that same energy the entire time. And all of a sudden, when things get real and when feelings get involved, that's when the other person gets scared, or that's when the other person is like, oh, wait, like, no, I was never looking for this. Like, that's when all of a sudden the table flips. And I'm just not about that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I would much rather a man straight up from the jump be like, you know what? I'm just looking for a good time, not a long time. Because what does that do? That saves the other person from wasting precious time that could be spent with other people or on other things. And so I just can't hold space anymore in my life for men who do not stand on their shit and who are not just honest. And so I'm just grateful that one, I respect myself enough to walk away from situations that no longer serve me, especially in relationships, and that I have learned how to see red flags, acknowledge them as red flags, and then act accordingly. And so I have no regrets. This is not giving, oh, I'm so heartbreaking. I'm so heartbroken. If anything, this situation has been giving like annoyance and like why? Like, what was the point of wasting my time? But it doesn't always feel that way. For all my single girlies out there, I know y'all know the ups and downs of the men's who be trying to figure out what they're looking for and all of a sudden figure out that what they're not looking for is a relationship while establishing a relationship with someone. Like, ain't that funny? Ain't that funny how that happens? Anyways, we're not upset. I'm just saying. So yeah, that is the latest on the dating front. However, I have been very open and very much keeping my options open throughout this process. And we'll be going on another date this week and getting to know new connections. And so stay tuned. I will have some stories for y'all very, very soon on my newest dating escapades because oh my goodness. You know, the little get to know you conversations I've been having with people lately just be cracking me up because some dudes like on their dating profile be like, I hate small talk. Let's just go on a date. But like, home dog, I am not about to like go meet up with you in person if like I'm not even certain that you're not a serial killer. You know what I mean? Like, just because you hate small talk does not mean that you do not owe me some information so that I can look you up, do a little background check myself to then decide if I want to meet up with you in person. Okay? That is important because, like I have said in the past, men be scary, men be creepy. And the last thing I'm about to do is set myself up to be showing up on some missing TV show because I listened to some dumbass dude who didn't want to have some small talk just so he could kidnap me. Like, I wish. Well, no, I don't wish. But you get what I'm saying. So it's been interesting, like, coming through all of these dudes and also getting to know guys that, like, I never thought I would talk to before. This year and, like, last year, I really wanted to kind of, like, spread my wings and be more open to guys that I wouldn't normally talk to, more so from, like, a personality standpoint. Because let's be honest, like, a lot of us, most people, physical attraction is, like, especially on dating apps, that's kinda like the first level of, like, attraction that people have to pass, right? Because in order for you to match with someone, you obviously have to find them attractive. But I've been trying to be a bit more intentional about like, yeah, okay, like someone's cute or whatever, but like trying to pay more attention to like what's on their profile. Like how are they like introducing themselves or like describing themselves? Or how are they like showing their personality on their profile to kind of give me some sort of indication like, okay, is this person funny? Which is like something that's really big to me. Does this person have any personality or are they just bored or are they just on this dating app to fuck? Because it is quite evident, I will say, having been on dating apps long enough, you can tell by or how thorough a person's um how thorough a person's profile is to kind of give you some insight into like what they may be looking for. That there's a method to the madness. And so doing that, I have met some very interesting people, and I'm curious to see like how things go after over time. So stay tuned, y'all. Outside of that, we have been staying tuned on what's been going on in the media because, like I said, there's been a lot going on. And so, moving into the tea that we are going to be sipping on today, y'all, I had to bring this conversation onto the pod because it has been popping up all over my social media. I've been seeing it in the news, etc. So we're going to talk about it today. And who are we talking about? We are talking about Blake Lively and Jason Baldoni. Now, you are unfamiliar, which these two are pretty famous. However, if you were not familiar with them, Jason Baldoni is well known for, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, in my opinion, he is most well known for his role on the show Jane the Virgin. Jane the Virgin was, oh, it was such a good show. That was the show with the girl who got canceled for for rapping that song with the N-word. I don't remember her name. I want to say her name is Gina Rodriguez. And it was about a girl who had never had sex but popped up pregnant after going to the doctors and a whole accident. And Jason appeared on the show as Jane's baby daddy. She got pregnant via insemination. She was inseminated by accident. Someone else was supposed to be inseminated, but there's a whole thing that happened, and the person whose sperm it was, who she was inseminated with, was Jason Baldoni. And so he was her, like, they grew to be love interests over time, but did not start that way. He played Raphael. That was his name in the show. I would say that's what he's most famous for. But then over time, like, did other roles and also, like, has a podcast. Now, Blake Lively is very well known for her role. I think her breakout role was on Gossip Girl, which was a cult classic high school drama with an ensemble cast, and she was the blonde bombshell on the show. And she was on the show for all like 8 seasons, I think there was. And Gossip Girl was on the CW, and then eventually it moved to other networks, and now it's available on streaming. Now, this show was popular back in, I want to say it was like mid 2000s, like not early 2000s, but like mid. And it took the media by a storm because it was a show about high schoolers, but very much sexualized high schoolers, and had very crazy, quote unquote, crazy high school drama that you were not really seeing on TV. But it was also like high school drama that like most would consider to be like college or like adult drama. Like these kids were doing some adult shit, some would say. And so this show became like a hearty favorite for people for a very long time. So then after Gossip Girl, Blake went on to do many different roles, movies like A Simple Favor, Age of Adeline, and also became like a fashion icon, which truly she just had great stylists, let's be honest. So anyways, these two major stars back in 2024 last year did a movie together called It Ends With Us. And who would have thought that a movie like this, but also two stars that like had never, to my knowledge, and I don't think it had ever been confirmed that like they had ever worked together before, would blow up in such a major clusterfuck to like now there are lawsuits. So let me fill you in on what happened in the middle before we get there, because they did the movie called It Ends With Us, which is basically a story about abuse, domestic abuse. However, it starts with a love story, and the love story is between Blake Lively and like her first love, but like I didn't see the movie, by the way. I'm giving you a synopsis of the movie. With her first love, they broke up for whatever reason, and she later on finds Jason Baldoni's character. They fall in love, and his character is abusive. And so she gets to a point, apparently, where like she has to choose between staying with him or going back to her first love, essentially. But like the theme of the movie is around DV and bringing awareness to that, right? Like keep that on your mind, right? That is supposed to be the focus of the movie, not star-crossed lovers, not a amazing love story between Jason and Blake, at least. And so that movie comes out, and Blake and Jason start doing, the press tours, right? Like that's the Hollywood thing. Like you put out a blockbuster, you go around talking to the press during movie showings. They go talking to the press. They're doing interviews promoting this movie, right? You want to get more people to see the movie. And there were two completely different press tour experiences going on during the It Ends With Us press tour. You have Jason Baldoni going around in his interviews bringing awareness to domestic abuse and communicating resources and just sharing the powerful message and bringing attention to that important subject and making it about that, right? Like that's technically your goal when it comes to promoting a movie. You're supposed to be talking about the movie, the themes, what you learned, why you loved it, showing like your process, whatever. Not using that as an opportunity to self-promote, not using it as an opportunity to show how you didn't prepare for the movie. And that's exactly what Blake Lively did. She had a horrible press tour. And that was as a result of herself. She was going around, barely talked about domestic abuse, barely talked about domestic violence, and instead talked a lot about herself and what she did for the movie, and made her promotion of the movie like it's a girls' night out watch and you should wear your florals and girl chat about it, when this is a very serious movie talking about very serious things. Like it gave that she did not understand the movie that she was promoting and or did not care. And so there were very many articles going around, very many clips of her interviews where people were like, did she even read this book? Is Blake Lively a narcissist? Like people were dragging her. And so fast forward to the end of 2024 going into 2025, and Blake Lively files a lawsuit against Jason Baldoni and multiple people who interacted or worked on the movie. In her lawsuit, Blake alleges that she was harassed by Jason and others, and that they coordinated a campaign to attack her reputation for coming forward about her treatment on set. Now, all of these nuggets from the lawsuit that I'm going to talk about here, I got from AP News, which is one of the very few nationally recognized news sources that like I trust as like valuable information. AP continues to go on to say that in her suit, she noted that Jason and the film production company, Wayfarer Studios, and others engaged in a carefully crafted, coordinated, and resourced retaliatory scheme to silence her and others from speaking out about their treatment. Now, we also cannot forget to note that not long before her official lawsuit against Jason and crew, she worked with the New York Times on a piece where she essentially laid out all of her claims of harassment against Jason and all of her feelings about him and how he attempted to tarnish her reputation. And the New York Times, y'all, is not just, oh, like a little local, like, news source. No, that is a national news source that everyone can access. And Blake was essentially also claiming that, like, Jason and others would talk openly about their past porn addiction and their sexual experiences and would essentially try to coerce her to talk about hers as well. So the New York Times article comes out. Jason sues the New York Times for that article because he essentially saw it as a smear campaign by Blake, right? So then Blake sues Jason and crew. Not only does Blake sue Jason, but Jason is also suing Blake Lively and her husband, her man's Ryan Reynolds. He is suing them for defamation and extortion. And that is summing up to $400 million in damages, alleging that Blake and Ryan hijacked the production and marketing of the movie and manipulated the media to smear him and others who worked on the movie by claiming false allegations of sexual and other forms of harassment. Now, look, we were not there on the set. Let me start there. We were not there when Jason may or may not have said inappropriate things to Blake. We were not there when Jason may or may not have harassed her, or crew members or production people may have harassed her. We were not there when a lot of these allegations happened, right? However, we have been around and have been privy to quite a few of Jason's claims. Because if you take a look at Blake's media presence following this movie, if you take a look at the ownership she claimed of this movie via her interviews, and also if you take a look at Jason's receipts that he's rolling out, like pictures of him and his family being forced to sit in the basement during the premiere. He has physical evidence of that. And there's also physical evidence of Blake smearing him publicly, i.e. the New York Times article. There is physical proof of her hijacking the movie. And Blake claims to have, or has, loads and loads of text messages where a lot of the alleged inappropriate conversations may or may not have happened. Now, look, I am always one to believe women first, right? Because women oftentimes are rarely believed. However, it's difficult when you see someone who has publicly been displaying the way she is being characterized in Jason's lawsuit. And for that, it kind of feels like this situation is one where this man's reputation could be completely ruined because of Blake's influence, ties in the industry, popularity, as well as her control over this film, which, according to Jason and the production team, she was not supposed to have that power. She was not supposed to rewrite scripts. Her husband was not supposed to be writing some of her scenes. Like, it gave that they were trying to take over a movie that they were supposed to have specific parts in. However, a lot of Blake's lawsuits, I feel like, gives she is unhappy about the way that she is being perceived in the media. but just looking at the numerous interviews where Jason said not one unkind word about Blake, and where his motives were solely to promote the movie, and seeing hers being the exact opposite, and seeing and reading reports about people reporting so many negative things about her and her behavior that was physically being seen. It feels like one of those situations to me where, is this going to be a situation where we have a man who may be guilty for some things, but their reputation and their opportunities are being ruined because of the power and influence a woman has, which we don't see a lot of times. And, this may be an unpopular opinion because, again, part of believing women is believing women, right? And believing their claims and what they say happened to them. But to me, in my research, from what I'm seeing, there's something very off about Blake's claims. It's not giving equal. And I'm so curious to see how this plays out in the court of law, because I have seen so many valid receipts from Jason and his team, and have seen few and far between from Blake and her team. And unfortunately, these lawsuits are long as hell. They're giving hundreds of pages. And so I've been keeping tabs through some independent journalists on social media, and honestly, y'all, this is going to be a long and drawn out process, because at the end of the day, for some of these claims, it's going to be his word against her word. But for other claims, there are witnesses. And for a lot of Jason's claims, there are witnesses. There are people like the production company who can speak to a lot of these things. I honestly keep going back and forth on whose side that I'm on, because I personally really liked Jason prior to this, and prior to finding out about Blake's very problematic behavior and actions. I really liked her too, from Gossip Girl. And so to see what was supposed to be a beautiful moment for advocacy for these two promoting this movie to be turned into a media circus because these two don't get along for numerous reasons, it's just very much becoming a pissing contest from my point of view, based on what we are seeing in these lawsuits, as well as based on what is being said by these parties. And so I'm curious, y'all, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Like, whose side are y'all on? Are you on Blake's side or are you on Jason's side? Because, as I've been saying, the claims, the receipts aren't matching on one end compared to another, but also it's like when it comes to claims like harassment, sexual harassment, things like that, we can't afford to not take claims like that seriously. However, I think that power and influence is definitely coming in to play here, and I think there is some mischievousness going on here because people are scared that their coin is going to be fucked with based on how they were portrayed in the media by their own doing, mind you, not by anyone else's doing but their own, and the words that were coming out of their mouths. So I'm curious, if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these lawsuits between Jason and Blake. You can do the same on Spotify. There is a comment feature there. Let me know. Sound off and let me know if y'all are on Team Blake or Team Jason, or if you're in the middle, or if you're split, because child, it's gonna be a long drawn out thing, and I'm so curious to see what's gonna come of this, Okay, let's go ahead and slide over into today's Yap sesh on the chaotic America that I unfortunately live in because oh, I would have never thought that in 2025 we would see censorship rearing its ugly head. And we are seeing this heavily through what has been the TikTok drama. Now, okay, I am newer to the TikTok world. I have only been on there. I've been on there less than a month, and I have been learning as I've been going through other people. However, TikTok has been around since 2014, 2015, around that time. So it's been around for a long time and has been, from what I've seen, from hearing from like my friends, family who are avid TikTok users, like TikTok is this seems to be the number one app that most people use because that app provides access to so many different pieces of information and in such unique ways. A lot of people go to TikTok to get the news. A lot of people go to TikTok for cooking tips, for fashion, beauty, makeup, sports, podcasts, you name it. People are flocking to TikTok for it. And people also, post their own content on there and engage with their friends there. And so TikTok truly skyrocketed in so many different parts of the world, but especially in the US. I mean, and I think one of the primary ways it did that was via dancing trends. Okay, rewind back to COVID. What were people doing in the house besides binging TV shows and learning how to cook? They were dancing. They were trying a dance challenge. You know what I mean? And so to see that at the end of 2024, the blossoming Republican government that we have now decided to attempt to enforce a ban on the primary app people use for access to information has been it almost feels like it's not real. Because I remember growing up hearing about other countries and censorship and hearing different stories about, the US and censorship and how that impacted women, communities of colors back in the day. But to see that in 2024 going into 2025, the most, in my opinion, powerful app we have for information could be completely banned from the US has started to make me feel like this might sound so doom and gloom, but makes me feel like this is the beginning of some very awful times ahead. I mean, I already started to feel that way seeing our ex-CEO, current felon of a president, being voted back in office. But, in America, one of our greatest freedoms is freedom of speech and freedom to access information. And a lot of other countries have not had that privilege for a long time, which is why, a lot of people love America. One reason, the government attempting to enact this ban based on quote unquote national security concerns due to the app being created in China is just a bunch of bullshit. Like, if there's one thing that we know about the Republican Party, they will try to control anything from a woman's body, her organs, what children should be learning in school. Best believe that censorship is next on the list. And, I look at not just Trump, not just the Republican Party, but I also look at the people who voted for these assholes to have the positions of power that they have now. Because we cannot forget that Trump attempted to sign a bill to ban TikTok in the first place. That is how we even got here. This was not just a random thought by our Republican Senate, by our Republican Supreme Court. Trump was already working on this shit back in 2020. So don't find it convenient that now that he's coming back in office, and now that he also has to win over the younger generations, he needs to make a play that would instill trust in the younger generations that he could not win over, but Kamala could. So what is a creative way he could do that to also give him an even smoother transition into office? He wants to be Captain Save the Ho. He wants to save TikTok. So what happened? The Republicans for a long time were saying to TikTok ownership, which is I think ByteDance, that they need to either find an American owner of the app, of all of the technology, you name it, or it was going to be banned in the US. ByteDance owner said, hell no, we are not allowing Americans to own this app. And so they held firm on their grounds. And we saw many different rich people. We saw many different companies over time saying, I'll buy TikTok, I'll do this, I'll do that. But there were no legit sales coming into play. And that is important because the statute allowed for the sitting president to have the ability to grant a 90-day extension if a legit sale was happening. So TikTok had until January 19th, which was on Sunday. However, on Saturday, January 18th, all of a sudden, TikTok goes dark. Everybody gets a notice saying I feel like one of the pettiest app messages I have ever seen, honestly, in my life. And it was giving, so thanks to the American government, this happened. However, thanks to President Trump, we'll be working on something soon. So we may be back soon. Nobody could access TikTok for hours. Then comes January 19th. In comes Trump trying to save the day. And all of a sudden, he's working with the Chinese government and ByteDance to pause the bill from even going into play. And so we have the TikTok owner thanking President Trump and spewing all of this positive press his way. And the conspiracy theory girl in me is saying, this is a bunch of bullshit. This is absolutely going according to plan for Trump. And I have to say, it was a genius plan because he needed to do something big to show his cojones, one, as a president who was coming in with not as much popular support. And I say popular support as Kamala did. However, behind the curtain, Trump had so much support. But from what we were seeing, it was very much giving from the older generation. And so doing something like saving TikTok has so many dummies already. Like, wow, Trump is so great. Has so many celebrities who are just praising him. We're also seeing that a lot of celebrities have signed on to perform at his inauguration. Like, it is all going according to plan for him. And what I feel like we cannot afford to do as the people is ignore the fact that we are in this position because of him. Censorship is just a part of the agenda that the Republicans have to take away freedoms. And I know this conversation is real politicky, so that if this is not your vibe, I understand. But I feel that this information is so important to share because we cannot afford to not be informed about how our resources, our rights are being fucked with before our eyes, and we cannot be idiots and be fooled by the clown tricks these politicians are pulling out of their ass to ensure that they have control. And so, while it is great that TikTok might not be fully going away, it is not great that TikTok was even being threatened to be banned in the first place. Because again, information is crucial. We have to be informed. Speech, the right to share information is so crucial. However, not all information is great information. But, under the Constitution, freedom of speech is a freedom. And my question is, under this New Deal that Trump is obviously making with the owners of TikTok as well as the Chinese government, what are they going to control? Because if there's one thing we know about Republicans, about the government, period, control is always behind the curtain. And I just do not believe that we are just being handed TikTok and something else is not being taken away in return. And so I need people to remember that Trump is not Captain Save-A-Ho. Trump is the reason we are here in the first place, and Trump is the reason so much more chaos and so many freedoms and rights that we have are literally vulnerable. And, I worry for people of color. I worry for the LGBTQ plus community. I worry for the disability community. I worry for all of the minority populations that we have in the US because we have people in power whose pure motives are to keep the rich rich, the poor even poorer, and to control as many elements of human decencies, human rights, sexuality as they can. In a world where we could see in America such a prime tool of information become vulnerable and be stripped away like that, what's next is my question. And how can we act is my next question. How do we fight against a government like this? How do we ensure that we are receiving information and not just targeted information, not controlled information? Because it's TikTok today. What app is next? Because TikTok was not the only app that went dark on Saturday. We also had apps like CapCut, Lemon8, which is supposed to be like TikTok's sister, and a few other apps go dark on the App Store. You could not find them. I am happy to hear that TikTok is back. Like, as of Sunday, we were able to access the app again. But in my opinion, it's not all the way back. In my opinion, ByteDance, the Chinese government had to hand over something. And what that is, I don't know if we'll find out. I'm curious. Are y'all glad? Are y'all glad TikTok is back? Like, are y'all concerned for the future of this country with, who we have in office now? And my international peeps, like, what are y'all's thoughts? Because America sure has a lot of bullshit. I'm sure other countries be looking at us like, what the fuck is going on over there? So I'm so curious what y'all's thoughts are, but I just really had to sound off about that. I probably just sat here and rambled this whole time, but I just feel so passionate about the importance of being informed and not allowing politicians to win you over with the tricks that they have used in so many arenas just to win people over, but to never truly serve them in an effective and like service-minded way, which I think is crucial to being for the people. That we've also had the fires going on in California. People have literally lost their homes. And it's really felt like, damn, like some people have not been able to catch a break from 2025 yet. Oh, I have family in California, and it's just a very scary time, especially at the start of a new year. And so, I bring attention to all of this to say, like, please take care of yourselves, y'all. Hug on your loved ones and ensure that you are staying informed to what's going on in the world, because I know that it can be doom and gloom and it can be a lot or it can be boring, whatever, but the way that human rights are being played with and the way that we are seeing clownery taking place needs to be watched. And so ensure that you have access to information, whether that is from independent journalists, whether that is from watching the news, whether that is from, looking into the news from like your favorite app. Just ensure that you are making time to be informed, because what we have seen going on, not even just in 2025, but even looking at what was going on in Gaza, Hamas, all of that, like the world is hurting and there is so much going on. And so take care of yourselves, love on your loved ones, and I hope y'all are finding ways to tap into your mental health and refresh your mind, body, and soul in whatever ways feel necessary for you. And on that note, that's it for this week. I need to go and drink some water. I have been just yapping my little tail off. But I hope that this information was helpful. I hope that you found something useful from this conversation, because it's so important to know how to act and what your resources are. And I think that truly comes from information. And so don't forget, y'all, I am on Spotify, YouTube, and on Apple Podcasts. And so share this podcast with your friends and let me know what you're thinking about the pod so far. Love y'all. See you next time.